Oh my god! Matthew held Simon in a full body chokehold, crushing his body like a stress ball and glaring hard into his beady red eyes. Matthew, what the hell?
I'm gonna rip you apart!
What the hell, Matthew? Explain to me what's going on.
War deep within. I can't go through it alone, and I won't leave you on your own. I stand before you now and promise you I am not afraid. I will fight and guide the way. We will rise again to glory then, soar into the sky. If you stop and see, then you just might believe.
Sup guys, the name's Dragnell and welcome back to Seduce Me to the Demon Or. So last we left off, we had another nightmare, and Matthew was even more sadistic, and where the hell did angry sex come from? I mean, I don't like being angry with my mate, but angry sex, kinda have to agree with that. Yeah, moving on. Moving on from that. Faye is a good trader so far, even though they had no idea what they were doing. Anyways, we entered, and let's just continue. Exhausted and tired, I marched to my room and opened the door, surprised to see Matthew already there. Huh? Matthew? Oh, my lord! Please tell me he's not possessed. However, what was odd about him being in the room was not that he was there before me, but that he was staring at the fire, eyes glazed over in almost a pale blue tint. Something was going on. I walked over and placed my hand on Matthew's shoulder, slowly walking around him to look directly into his eyes. It was almost creepy to see, but he seemed almost dead. Matthew! No response. I gently shook his body, trying to snap him out of whatever trance he was under, but gasped as I spotted a blue ring around his neck. As I did, the air around me became colder and a little darker. What was going on? Panicked, I looked around, trying to pin down what was causing this. Matthew's voice brought me back to him, hearing his voice drawl out of his mouth like an emotionless doll. I gripped Matthew's shoulders tightly and shook him again. Matthew! Still nothing. Okay, we are not going to smack him. We are going to kiss him. Okay? I had to break him out of whatever spell was consuming his mind, and there was no way in hell I was going to smack him. Instead, I took his head into my hands and pulled him into a kiss, locking lips with him and shutting my eyes. I didn't understand what made me do this, but I was determined to make it work, because we ain't slapping him for the whole entire world. No way. I waited and waited until finally Matthew wrapped his arms around me and leaned into the kiss, letting me know he possibly broke through. I opened my eyes slightly to see his eyes closed, but his arms around my waist were secure and loving, just like how I remembered. As I slowly pulled away, Matthew opened his eyes and revealed their lovely ocean blue color. Perfect. However, his cheeks were a lovely contrast of red.
Hi.
Hi! I smiled a bit, giggling. Hey, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just looking at the fire. It's pretty warm.
Every part of me didn't believe him. Then again, something was wrong and maybe Matthew was becoming a victim of it. I frowned and cupped his cheek, making him lean into it slightly. Are you sure? You looked like you were possessed. Matthew furrowed his eyebrows, unsure of what I meant. Did he really not remember? I now became concerned, desperate to know answers. Why was he acting so strangely? Matthew took my hands in his and held them gently, rubbing his thumbs over the tops of my hands.
Hey, is everything all right?
Everything's fine with me. Everything's not fine with you. You gotta tell me what's wrong now. I almost glared. That was what I had to ask. That was what I had asked him. I wasn't crazy. I knew that something was off, and I had to try to figure out what happened. I squeezed Matthew's hands instead. Matthew, I'm serious. You were staring at the fire, and your eyes just looked glazed and stuff. Pressing his lips together, he looked down, trying to discern what I meant as if he didn't do what I had suggested he did. I pulled his hands, now worried. I didn't want him to assume I was making things up. You believe me, right? Matthew stared into my eyes, reading them as he nodded.
I do. I do. I don't know how to respond. I mean, I don't remember being in a trance.
As he said that, however, he suddenly curled over and held his head, hissing in pain. Matthew! Quickly, Matthew collapsed onto his knees and gripped his head, digging his fingers into his hair as I followed him down. No, Matthew, what's wrong? Now I knew for sure something was definitely wrong. I cupped Matthew's face, trying to read his expression and trying to figure out what was wrong just from sight. A moment passed before Matthew let out a gasp of a breath, opening his eyes wide and panting for some fresh air to enter his lungs. His eyes painted his fear, as if he had just encountered a nightmare within the moment that passed. Matthew! Jesus Christ, I know I need to update! Sorry guys, that thing is annoying me. Pretend you didn't hear that. Matthew, what happened? Matthew wouldn't speak, furrowing his eyebrows and shaking his head.
I heard someone calling to me.
Calling to you? For a moment, I believed it to be his mother. Maybe he was hearing what I heard in the human world. But why didn't I hear it anymore? It made no sense. Matthew shook his head and gritted his teeth.
It sounded like my mother. But how could she...
I think I heard her voice in the human world. I took Matthew's hands and held them to my chest, catching his attention. Hey, let's go ask the others about this. It's not too late to go talk to them. Matthew suddenly shook his head and took his hands from mine, grasping my shoulders.
It's all right, really. I don't need their help. We can figure this out on our own.
Matthew, come on. You gotta accept help at some point. Matthew. I had a really bad feeling about the situation. Matthew was getting put in trances, then getting headaches and hearing his mother's voice. Why was he so reluctant to get the help of his brothers? You need the help, man. If you're in pain, this could probably kill you, and I don't want that. Okay, I'm saving. I'm saving here. Yes, I'm sure. Okay, cool. Back. I really want to insist, but I gotta trust Matthew, you know? If this is wrong, I swear to God. Okay. Matthew seemed adamant. I swallowed my nerves and nodded slowly, taking in a breath and letting out a sigh. Matthew leaned forward and kissed my forehead, thankful that I was willing to trust him. However, trust wasn't the issue. I trusted Matthew very much. What I didn't trust was whatever was trying to influence him and hurt him. I didn't just want to leave this in the dark, and I didn't want us to hit a wall with this that could potentially hurt Matthew more or make him do something even more odd. I grimaced before standing up, helping Matthew up. Come on, let's head to bed. Matthew nodded, agreeing that, right now, sleep was something we probably needed. I led Matthew to bed and helped him in, cuddling up to him and laying my head on his shoulder. Matthew?
Yeah?
Are you sure you'll be okay?
I'm sure. I promise, I'll figure this out in no time.
I nodded once more before closing my eyes. I had to let him try. If all else failed, I could go to the others for help, but not unless it became dangerous. Still, something felt wrong about this entire situation. First, there was something wrong with me, but now there was something wrong with Matthew? We had the worst luck. I expected the night to take me away into a world of slumber, but was quietly awoken by Simon poking my side with his knife. Simon, never wake me up from my sleep. I will personally squeeze the life out of you. Oh, jeez. What? I looked down at my side to see Simon waving his arms and pointing at the door, revealing it to be partially opened with a familiar red eye peeking through it. I stared, suddenly wide-eyed, but Diana didn't move from her spot, knowing I spotted her. Did she want me to go over there? Simon pulled at my hand, wanting me to go, so I snuck out of Matthew's arms and crept to the door, causing Diana to back away from it and give me the space needed to leave the room. Diana?
Is everything all right?
Huh? Where was this coming from? I furrowed my eyebrows. What do you mean? Diana pressed her lips together and looked into the room for a moment before looking back to me with a serious expression.
I was doing my usual routine around the castle and felt somewhat of a disturbance in the air, like something was trying to make contact with someone here. It was a weak wave, but...
I stared surprised. Someone was really trying to contact Matthew? I became overjoyed to know that it was simple enough. Diana tilted her head at me, seeing my expression.
What? Did something happen?
Before I opened my mouth to speak, however, Matthew's pleas echoed in my head. He wanted me to trust him. If I told Diana, I'd ruin his trust for me. I merely bit my lip, shaking my head. No, I'm just surprised, is all. Diana raised an eyebrow at me, but I didn't budge. I didn't want to be the one to say anything until Matthew needed me to. Despite it fighting against every moral code in my body, I had to put some trust in Matthew. Eventually, Diana nodded before turning to leave.
I apologize for disturbing your sleep. Please, have a good night.
With that, Diana left me alone in the hall. I stared, mildly flabbergasted at the fact that she simply let it go. However, would she look into it more? I had to admit, I hoped so. I returned to Matthew's arms that night, hoping that everything would be okay. The morning was unkind as I woke up and yawned, feeling drowsiness still try to consume my mind and force it back to sleep. However, I had to train today, and so did Matthew. Speaking of Matthew, I turned my head to see Matthew rubbing his eyes, waking up alongside me. However, his grumble let me know that the night was not kind to him.
Is it morning already?
Yep, it is. I nodded and gently leaned down, kissing Matthew's forehead. That seemed to lighten his mood as a happy smile danced across his lips, and he let out a happy sigh.
Good morning.
Hee hee, morning. I smiled as I hovered over Matthew's face, seeing his beautiful blue eyes gaze into my eyes through the blur of sleep. With a sweet, infectious smile, Matthew reached a hand up and cupped my cheek.
You're so pretty. You know that?
Stop. You're making me blush. You're making the little potato blush. I am a potato. But if you insist, then I'm a pretty potato. Ugh. I fought a blush creeping up on my face. The way he said it so casually made my heart flutter and had me forgetting about the world around us. It was like we were in our own little universe for a short moment of time. I nuzzled his hand and giggled. I didn't want the day to roll onto us getting ready to separate and train just yet. I wanted to sit back with Matthew and enjoy our time alone. No problems, no danger, just us. Matthew grew a small smirk before snaking his arms around me and pulling me against his chest, making me gasp and grab onto his shoulders, not wanting to crush him with my weight. However, Matthew smiled and squeezed me close.
No nightmare last night, huh?
As he said it, I realized it. There was indeed no nightmare for me last night. I had a peaceful, dreamless night. I suddenly smiled and looked down at Matthew with a happy nod. Yeah, no nightmare. I had a good sleep. For once. Matthew chuckled before leaning up and kissing me softly, just enough for me to feel it. As he pulled away, I became curious about his own night. What about you? Matthew's smile faltered a bit as I asked, but shook his head slightly and gained his smile back.
It was rough. I woke up a couple of times, but that was pretty much it.
There was more to the story, but I had to let it go. If he wanted me to trust him, then I had to with the full extent of my heart. I nodded and planted a light feather-like kiss on his nose, making him chuckle beneath his breath. So, what's the plan for you?
Well, I figured I could skip some training and just spend some time with you.
Oh! I see the idea you're getting at, but we gotta train. No. No libido! We gotta train! We have to train, Matthew. With a playful smirk, I grabbed the nearby pillow and gently bounced it on him, making him flail a bit. Ah!
Hey!
You know training is important, Matthew. Matthew smirked and rolled us both over to have him on top of me, bouncing his own pillow on me. Gah!
I can totally train with you in a never-ending pillow fight!
Oh my god! Pillow fight with the cinnamon roll! Let me just gaze into this moment, because this is the best thing of my life. Pillow fight! Oh, it was on! I quickly grabbed my pillow and swung it at Matthew, landing on target and causing him to roll off of me. With a grin, I arched my body in the opposite direction, hoping to land another hit on him. But Matthew quickly ducked and swung his pillow at me, hitting me with a soft, fluffy impact.
Gotcha!
Haha! The battle became intense as soon as we were double fisting pillows, trying to whack each other with our chosen weapons while also avoiding the fireplace, the bench, and truly anything that looked expensive around the room. Regardless, we were immersed in our own world, duking it out with feathers and cloth as we lost track of time. We barely even noticed the door open.
What's going on in...
Oh! As Diana's voice rang through the air, I gasped in surprise and looked over to see the succubus holding 2 plates with stacks of pancakes on them. Pancakes! Oh my god, no. Ah! What frightened me and Diana was a sudden knife chucking itself in Diana's direction, causing her to sidestep and letting the knife rake through a stack, effectively nailing the pancakes to the wall beside her. Not the pancakes! Whoa!
Hey!
Oh no, Matthew, why? Why did you do that? The pancakes! The poor pancakes! Diana and I looked to Matthew, seeing him panted and posed in mid-throw. His eyes flashed back and forth between gold and blue. Why? Glaring hard at Diana, most likely in surprise from her sudden entrance. Why? There's no need to chuck a knife at her! What the hell, Matthew? You ruined the pancakes! And, once again, I was taken away from my fantasy and brought back to reality. Diana snarled and practically slammed the 2 plates she was holding on the table, glaring daggers at Matthew.
What in the 7 hells was that about?
Diana! As Diana took a step forward, Matthew suddenly shook his head and realized who was approaching him and who he essentially attacked, causing him to step back and place his hands in front of him.
Whoa! Hold on!
Defend him. We gotta defend him. I quickly reacted, not wanting Diana and Matthew to start fighting. Besides, Diana took us by surprise. Matthew couldn't have known. I rushed over and placed myself between Matthew and Diana, holding my arms out to stop her. Diana, hold on! Diana stopped and glared down at me, now turning her frustration towards me.
What?
I opened my mouth to speak before Matthew rushed around me and pressed his hands together, bowing his head.
I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. I thought it was an attacker and...
You thought it was Wow. That's a... Wow.
An attacker in my home? They would be dead before they even set foot through the gates!
Wow. I looked to Matthew, seeing him grit his teeth and press his hands together hard, trying to gain some form of forgiveness from the succubus who seemed to want his throat cut open. Diana snarled quietly before slapping his hands away and gripping his chin, making him stare up at her.
The next time you dare to attack me will be the last time you feel your heart beating in your chest.
With a threatening scowl, oh my god, Diana pushed Matthew back and away from her, causing her to turn away and walk towards the exit of the room. I, however, rushed to Matthew, catching him before he tripped on his own feet.
Eat, then get to training. Don't waste time.
Diana finally left, leaving me and Matthew lost in our own space once again. This time, we were awake and aware of what was going on, mildly ashamed at the delusion we placed ourselves in before the sudden surprise from Diana. Matthew rubbed his head and looking to the floor.
Man, I really screwed up.
I'm gonna comfort... Why would I not say anything? I want to comfort him. I knew that he messed up, but he needed to get himself together and fix his mistake so he could move on and figure out the problems he already had. I wrapped my arms around him, nuzzling his shoulder. It's all right. I rubbed his shoulders as he rested his forehead against mine.
How the heck do I deserve you?
Please don't do that. You're making me feel things. Don't do that. I merely smiled and kissed his cheek. Because you love me, and I love you. With a chuckle, Matthew kissed my cheek in kind and nodded.
Right.
Matthew and I turned to our breakfasts and ate what we could, with Matthew taking the plate he managed to attack. The pancakes almost slipped off the knife that was still embedded in the wall, causing Matthew to run and catch it in his empty plate. So the pancakes are saved. Is he eating those? Is he eating those that were on the wall? Because he needs to eat that was on the wall. Because that was his fault for ruining the pancakes. He didn't eat it and merely left it there, avoiding it like it had some sort of poison in it. Are you serious? You need to go and eat that. Do not waste the pancakes. We eventually separated the train. Okay then, just leave the pancakes, letting the day roll. I began to feel a bit elated at the idea of walking the train with Faye. The stress of the morning needed to be burnt away with a workout, and I knew Faye would teach me something to take my mind off of it. It became like a game, a relief away from the reality of the world. I made my way to the grand hall and stopped at the doorway, looking and taking in the sight of Faye sleeping on the ground, spread eagle style. Is she are they sleeping? Is Faye sleeping? Oh my god. This makes it so much better. Oh my god. It took every ounce of control I had not to laugh hysterically at the sounds Faye was releasing as they slept. I keep calling Faye she because it looks like a she, and oh my god, I need to stop. To think such sounds came out of a cute-looking demon like Faye seemed rather bizarre and cartoon-like. Nevertheless, I knew I had to get started on training. The boys were most likely in the midst of their own training as I stood there, so I couldn't exactly spend time watching Faye snore. I stepped quietly into the room, drawing closer to Faye's body, as I tried to think of how to wake them up. I want to scare them. I do. In real life, I am a master of scaring people even though I don't know it. Like this morning, I woke up this morning and my cousin was actually making breakfast for me, and I was just like, good morning, and then he was like, whoa, what the? Oh shit. That's exactly how he was. He went like, what? Oh shit. And then he just like leaned against the table, breathing hard. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sorry. Are you okay? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, how did I scare you? I just came in. I thought you expected me, so I just said good morning. And he's like, I was just making breakfast and I was listening to wrestling, and then I'm like, you just scared me. That's all. I'm like, okay, all right then. So I was like, I'm a master of scaring people apparently by surprise. So what I'm gonna do is scare them. I feel mean, but I'm gonna do it. It was only going to be a little scare. A little fun never hurt anyone, right? I tiptoed further into the room, making sure not to wake up Faye as I approached them and circled around them. As I finally stood behind their head, I crouched down and cupped my hands together. That was probably a bad laugh. You know what? I'm gonna start over on that. And, okay, wait for it. Kind of better. Oh my god! Faye jolted up like they had been zapped by a bolt of lightning and shot themselves into the air like a rocket before slamming their head into the ceiling. Ow! 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 Oh no, I'm sorry! Oh my god! Faye! The temporary hilarity I felt as I scared Faye quickly vanished at the sound of their head colliding with the ceiling, echoed through the room, and the fairy in question quickly descended, holding their head. Oh, I'm so sorry, Faye! Faye, I am so sorry!
It's okay. Ow. I needed to wake up anyways.
Faye finally floated to be level with my height, shaking their head and rubbing over where their head collided with the ceiling. I bit my lip and rubbed the back of my neck, feeling now very embarrassed and ashamed of what I chose to do. Faye wiggled their arms and let out a tired sigh before blowing raspberries with their mouth and slamming their hands against their cheeks.
I am awake!
Good to know. I had to cover my mouth to stop the burst of laughter that wanted to erupt from my gut at the exclamation. Faye became full of energy like it was the flip of a switch. I became mildly jealous of such a feat. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just like groggy, and then throughout the day, I'll get a lot of energy, and I'm like, I don't know where I get this energy from. It's like a surprise to me. So, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, let's just keep going. Nevertheless, I was eager and ready for my next training session. I placed my arms at my sides and straightened my back, showing the posture of determination and attention. I'm sorry, every time I see the word determination, I have to do this. Knowing that you're going to train with Faye and knowing what you want to do and not knowing what they had in store for you fills you with determination. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep doing it every time determination comes up. I'm sorry. What will we be doing today? Faye looked over at me, looking for some sort of answer in my eyes. Despite showing the sudden energy spark like a light bulb earlier, they remained silent for a moment. Were they not sure? I hoped that today wouldn't be going over the thorn bush again. As much as it was a cool trick, casting a thorn bush into existence from dawn to dusk was not as fun as many would imagine it to be, even with hilarious breaks in between. Finally, a glimmer twinkled in Faye's eyes, making them grin from ear to ear at me.
I know what we're gonna do!
What? With a burst of energy, Faye shot themselves into the air and spun around before flipping upside down in the air towards me.
I'm gonna teach you how to fly!
Fly? Are you serious? We're gonna learn how to fly? That's good. Yes, sign me up. We're gonna learn how to fly. What? Fly? My mind completely blanked on itself. Fly? I was really going to be taught how to fly? I didn't have wings. How the heck was I going to do that? I don't know, but we're gonna roll with it. I want to learn how to fly. That's like my dream power, to fly, okay? I've always dreamed of being a bird, you know? Just flying in the air and not giving a shit about anything. Faye nodded ecstatically before swooping down and flying around me.
It's so easy. You just need to imagine yourself floating in the air and boom, you'll be flying in no time.
I grimaced, watching Faye fly around me. I suddenly felt like I was in Peter Pan and had to think happy thoughts and go to the second star to the right to Neverland. Oh, the Peter Pan! Yes, Peter. In my childhood days, before I started watching Danny Phantom, when I watched all these Disneys, Peter Pan was my very first Disney and cartoon crush. I just loved Peter Pan, okay? Peter Pan's like my life. Well, Faye was a fairy, so I'm suddenly imagining you as Tinkerbell, Faye. They are like Tinkerbell, except they talk, and Tinkerbell doesn't talk. And Faye doesn't have a lot of anger issues, and she doesn't turn red. They don't turn red like Tinkerbell does when she gets angry. All right then.
Tinker who?
She doesn't know. I keep saying she when Faye is they, because we don't know their gender. Why the fuck do I keep saying she? Somebody shoot me. What? They don't know Tinkerbell. Right. Demon world, not human world. Never mind. Faye stopped circling me and stared for a moment before shrugging and floating away from me, crossing their arms proudly and physically imitating Sergeant.
Now get those feet off the ground!
I looked down at the ground at my boot-covered feet. Making a thorn bush was one thing. Making myself fly was another. I tried to imagine it, but there was no energy in my body that would respond to such a request. How the heck was I going to fly? The captain thought, try and sprout wings. We're gonna do this Peter Pan style. Well, Peter Pan style is most likely like, all you need is faith, trust, and pixie dust. Okay, so basically it is Peter Pan. Think happy thoughts. So we're gonna do that. Think happy thoughts. As stupid as the idea was, what if the thought had merit? If energy came within me somehow, then maybe my emotions would give me that boost I needed. A happy thought, as cliche as it was, might have been the trick. I closed my eyes and tried to think of every happy thing in my life, tossing aside my situation. I was in a loving relationship with a man who wanted to devote his life to me. I had a loving family and amazing friends. Yeah, a loving family. We loved how our dad just tossed us into the estate the next day after grandfather died. And they only came for the housewarming party, and then we never heard from them again. Yeah, a loving family, my ass. I was going to get married soon. Oh, did I mention that our father slapped us? Yeah. The thought of marriage made my entire body warm in a happy feeling. I was going to get married to the most wonderful man in the world, and we would live together for the rest of our lives and beyond. The feeling of the wedding band on my ring finger intensified the feeling, making me smile and let out a sigh. Would that be enough? However, after almost a full minute of concentration, nothing seemed to occur. I opened my eyes and looked down at myself. My feet were still on the ground, and nothing had changed with me. A flash of anger sparked within me. How difficult was it to lift off of the ground? How the heck can I fly? As soon as the word burst from my mouth, I shot my hands down in anger, only to be vaulted into the air by some sort of energy force beneath my feet. My body quickly shot up, defying gravity and sending me towards the ceiling. Gah! Whoa! Faye quickly zipped over towards me and grabbed me, intercepting my quick ascent to the ceiling while holding me closer to them. It was like being held by a very strong child, as their small frame barely lined up from my shoulder to my knee. It hit me for a split moment. Faye was ridiculously small. Nevertheless, I gripped onto Faye, thankful I wasn't going to crash into the wood from above us, looking around in awe. I was really in the air, flying, or at least being held up by some force. I could feel energy cycle around and through my body, most likely keeping me afloat. I could fly. This is awesome! I looked at Faye with a growing excitement of the situation. This was the best feeling ever. Faye grinned before slowly letting me go, proving that they weren't holding me up and that I wasn't imagining anything. Holy crap, we can fly! Pure elation rushed through me as I merely measured the distance between my feet and the floor. I was in the air and slowly bobbing up and down like Faye, floating freely against gravity. I did it!
You did it! You're flying!
I willed my body forward, feeling the air around me slowly guide me. In obedience, the energy in my body moved me through the space. It was incredibly odd, feeling the air slightly brush against my entire body, but I was indeed moving forward. A large grin graced my face as I became more determined with my mental commands. I flew towards Faye and circled them before suddenly flying around the space. I felt as free as a bird, letting my mind naturally drive me in each direction I wanted to go in.
There we go! You're getting it!
Woohoo! Out of pure adrenaline, I arched my back and did a flip in the air before rocketing back forward and gliding over to turn away from the wall I was quickly approaching. The rush of this new power became addicting, and I wanted to do more with it. Still, I couldn't deny the effects using this power was putting me in. I could feel my energy quickly drain away the longer I remained in the air. A slight tingling sensation ran over my legs and hands, reminding me that I had a limited amount of energy. I mentally took note of it and floated over to Faye, putting a lid on my over-enthusiastic glee from the new power and preparing myself for further instruction. Alright, I can fly now. What's next? Faye laughed before planting their hands on their hips.
You really like flying, huh?
I couldn't help but nod. This was the most exciting thing I had done in the demon world thus far. It was like I was a superhero or something. I barely had to think about staying up to remain in the air, and it was increasingly making me giddy. Faye grinned before circling around me and gesturing to me to follow them.
Then let's have a little fun! Come on!
Within the blink of an eye, Faye zipped out of the room and into the hall. What? Hey! Not wanting to lose them, I willed myself forward, starting the chase. I quickly arched around the corner, locking Faye into my sights before building up speed to cut at my increasing distance. Faye was ridiculously fast. I'm thinking of Faye from... when I see the word Faye, I keep thinking of Faye, like Faye Fluorite from Tsubasa Chronicles. I want to pronounce it like that, but Faye is the correct pronunciation, so I just gotta think it's not Faye, like from Tsubasa, it's Faye. Alright, whatever. Faye was ridiculously fast, and I barely managed to dodge the obstacles in her way, which included other demons in decor.
Whoa!
Ah! Sorry, not sorry!
Ha! Sorry, not sorry. Despite ducking and dodging each speed bump in the halls, I couldn't help but laugh at the thrill of the experience. Faye looked back at me and laughed as well, but suddenly dropped their expression.
Ah!
With almost a screeching halt, Faye turned their body back upright and stopped going forward, holding out their hands and stopping me as well. To my surprise, Faye managed to stop me without budging from their place, like they were a perfect brick wall. Why did Faye stop? I turned upright as well, suddenly confused. Faye, however, floated forward ever so slightly, looking into a nearby room, peeking over the corner of the barely open doorway. Out of my own curiosity, I did as well, feeling my energy die out and lower me to stand on the floor at last. Diana? The room we were peeking into happened to be the war room, and we stared at the back of Diana's head as it looked down at the table in front of her, her hands gripping the edges like angry vices ready to break it. How did Faye know Diana was in here? And what the heck was Diana upset about?
How could a squad of scouts be found and slaughtered by a band of wild harpies?
Diana seemed to answer the question, but my mind began to try and imagine what she had said. Harpies existed? A squad of scouts were out and were killed? I looked up at Faye, seeing them press their lips together in worry as they stared at the succubus. As I turned to look back at Diana, however, I silently gasped and covered my mouth at what I had laid my eyes upon. Oh shit! Around Diana's body was a black and purple fiery aura, flickering brightly in the air around her as she dug her nails into the wood of the table.
I'll have to search for it myself then. But where to start?
Before I could watch further, suddenly afraid of Diana, Faye grabbed my shirt and quickly pulled me over from the door, making sure to cover the hand I had placed over my mouth with their own for safety.
Let's go. We should get back to training.
Without giving me an explanation or chance to break free, Faye guided me back to the training hall. My mind became full of questions, but as we returned to the training hall, Faye became almost like a military sergeant. I had to practice flying and forming my thorn bush to build my stamina until the end of the day. By then, I was too exhausted to ask questions and just returned to my room. I would ask tomorrow. I slowly padded back to my room, tired from the day. I needed rest and I needed the comfort of my bed and Matthew's arms around me. As I walked in, however, I took in a sight I did not expect to see. Oh my god! Matthew held Simon in a full body chokehold, crushing his body like a stress ball and glaring hard into his beady red eyes. Matthew, what the hell?
I'm gonna rip you apart!
What the hell, Matthew? Explain to me what's going on. Matthew! I rushed in and grabbed Matthew's hands, prying them apart and letting Simon slip from between them onto the ground. Simon let out a squeak before running out of the room. Matthew, still for some reason enraged, took a step to follow him before I slammed my hand onto his shoulder.
Get back here!
Matthew, stop! I gripped hard on Matthew's shoulder, causing him to turn to me and letting me grab his other shoulder. As I got a good look of his eyes, I gasped at the sight. His eyes were full of rage and anger as he panted in place. Whatever Simon did really made him go off of the edge, or something was influencing him again. I suddenly became afraid, shaking underneath his gaze. Every fiber of my body completely began to spaz out as I became locked in his angry glare. What was happening to me? I opened my mouth, try and speak, but not sound would dare come out of my vocal cords. It was like I was too frightened to press him or stop him. Oh, jeez. As Matthew continued to pant for air and stare at me, something in his mind slowly melted, causing his eyes to slowly widen in realization at what he had done and what he was about to do to Simon. The strange hold on my body faded away as his muscles relaxed, trying to breathe and regain control of whatever had clouded his judgment. As it finally became apparent that he had returned to his sanity, Matthew's eyes began to droop in sadness.
What am I doing?
Matthew pulled away from me, placing his hands between us and stepped back, staring at me in deep regret. I tried to step forward to try and comfort him, but he raised a hand to stop me, walking slowly over to the bed and sitting down, grasping his head.
Something happened to me. I don't know what.
Dear, you're being possessed. Okay? That's it. I frowned as I slowly moved and sat next to him. In shame, Matthew covered his face with his hands and curled over his knees, digging his fingers into his forehead.
I keep hearing my mother's voice telling me to come home and save her. Whenever I do, I completely lose control of myself. I can't remember what I did or why I did it, but I always manage to do something wrong.
I grimaced, remembering the random attack on Diana. I placed my hand on his shoulder as he shuddered and shook his head again.
I gotta fix this. There's gotta be some way to stop it from happening to me.
Matthew. It was painful to see him struggling. Still, I couldn't understand why he had to fight this alone. Why not go to the others for help? Matthew let out a sigh and slumped his shoulders further.
And let them help me? Like they've always done?
As Matthew turned to me, I could practically see the shame in his eyes as he spoke.
Every time I was in trouble, they'd always come and help. Every time I do something, I'm treated like a damn kid.
Matthew turned his head away and gritted his teeth, forming fists and laying them on his knees, tightening them in aggravation.
There's a reason why I didn't ask them to help with the wedding. I don't want them babying me and doing everything like I'm some sort of stupid moron who needs everything done for him.
That's why it was just me and Matthew preparing for the wedding. Wow.
I want to do this on my own. I can figure this out without their help. I'm not even the youngest, but they still treat me like I am, even Damien. I don't want that anymore.
Matthew, I know exactly how you feel. That's the struggle I go through with almost every day. I am the oldest in my family with only a younger brother. And because of my height, every single cousin that I have treats me like a goddamn fucking kid. Like I don't know shit. And I'm just sitting here like, are you fucking kidding me right now? At least I don't judge other people without knowing them first. Because some of my cousins can do that. And it just frustrates me so much. Even my parents do that to me. They want me to be an adult, but they still treat me like a kid. Like, come on. What the hell? I'm trying to be an adult, but it's like they're holding me back and treating me like a kid. I just can't. Okay? I can't. Moving on. I was speechless. Did Matthew really feel that kind of pressure from his brothers? My mind went back to the first day I had met them. How Eric treated Matthew like a little boy, despite Matthew being close to his age. As the grimace of realization appeared on my lips, Matthew let out a shaky sigh.
I can't ask for their help. I'm sorry.
Hug him! I felt terrible for Matthew. He definitely acted like a kid, but it seemed like only I remembered that he wasn't one. After all, I had been with this man for over 2 years of my life. I wrapped my arms around him, hugging me to him and making him gasp in surprise.
Uh-huh?
I buried my face in his shoulder, silently apologizing to him with a soft kiss on his neck. Slowly, Matthew wrapped his arms around me as well, taking in a breath and relaxing once more within my arms. A peaceful moment of silence passed between us before Matthew softly pulled away and looked me in the eyes.
I don't understand why you like me at all, you know?
We're not going there. Shut up and love me, 'cause I love you. What? Confused, I stared into Matthew's eyes, trying to find the origin of where his statement came from. Matthew, however, took my hands and grasped them in his, looking down at them.
I love you so much. But I'm not mature like James or the others. I don't understand at all how someone like me could be remotely likable.
Shut up! Shut up! If guys have that kid-like demeanor, I will love them forever. I don't give a shit if they act like a kid. I will love them for that because I am a kid deep inside. And I express it most of the time, but I can be mature at times. You are mature when you need to be. You still act like a kid when you have to, but still, you are proving yourself to be a man. Like, having fun, but also being serious at moments at the same time. You just, I can't. Okay, you are likable. Okay, shut up. Just shut up and accept my love. Stop. I glared, not wanting him to degrade himself. As he looked back up at me, he flinched at my stare, but I needed to get him to see that I loved him and cared for him, for every part of him. It didn't matter that he wasn't like his brothers. He was mine, and I loved him. I squeezed his hands, locking his gaze to mine. I love you for you, Matthew. I don't care what your brothers act like or how you're not like them. I don't care. I fell in love with you, not them. Matthew remained silent, staring deep into my eyes and taking everything that I was saying in with a broken but hopeful gaze. He really cared about me and didn't want to hurt me, but I didn't want to hurt him either. Whatever this is, whatever thing is trying to control you, we'll fix this. But don't you dare degrade yourself like that. I'm going to kiss him. Kiss him for the win! At last, I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his, locking his to mine in a loving kiss. Okay. Matthew stared wide-eyed before very slowly closing his eyes and melting into the lip lock. I wanted to show him how strong and wonderful he was. I fell in love with him, not just for his childish side, but how he made me feel with every part of him. He was very much an adult when I was locked in his arms and drowned in his kisses constantly. I was so lucky to have him as mine, and I wanted to remind him of that with every part of me, mind, body, and soul. Slowly, oh my god, sexy music. That means I can only warn you, I did not know this was coming. Well, yeah, I didn't know this was coming. When I first played this, I thought it was just like, okay, kiss him and you'll get points. So, okay, warning, smut. If you want to skip this, skip it now. Giving you a chance, giving you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. You're still here? Good, okay, let's go. I slowly slid my legs over his lap, straddling his hips, and made the kiss between us deeper, relishing in the feelings that were burning between us. Matthew slowly drew his hands up my sides and wrapped them around me, hugging me to his chest almost possessively and making me gasp against his lips. He was getting the idea, and I was happy that my message was clear enough to understand. He was mine, and I was his. We would support and hold on to each other forever, and nothing would separate us. My clothes were slowly stripped off of my body, Matthew taking his time in looking at every inch of my body. As it became exposed, I would shyly show him, but happily allow him to indulge and ravish me as he desired if he craved it. A flash of gold passed over his eyes as he finally grasped the back of my neck and kissed me passionately. I couldn't help but moan against his lips, feeling his free hand dance around each curve of my body as his enthrallment slowly eased itself into my core, warming my soul in love and need. Oh my god, he looks so cute here! Wait, I'm gonna just put that down. Look at him, he looks so cute! Though the words don't match his cute face. Okay, I couldn't stop myself from grinding against my incubus, needing him to undress himself and let us make love like I desired, like we both desired. Matthew slightly smirked against my lips before turning us over and staring at me.
You're so beautiful. You know that?
Shut up! I am a potato! Oh my god, stop. I'm just, okay. Let me not. I felt my body warm at his words, making me distracted as Matthew began to run his hands all over my body, leaving no inch of skin unexplored and unconquered by his fingers or lips. I reached back, pressing my head back to the pillow beneath my head, and let out a loving sigh and moan with each pleasurable touch he placed on me. This was truly heaven. I was so lost that I barely noticed him stripping as well and hovering over me, finally allowing us to become one. As we did, the world around me became lost. I could only see Matthew as he could only see me. We would become lost in each other's eyes, and as we wrapped each other in pleasure and love, climbing through our carnal ecstasy and chanting each other's name like two prayers in sweet harmony. My hands guided themselves around Matthew's body, feeling the slight sweat layered over his soft skin as I dragged my nails over his back. from the pleasurable hiss that erupted from him. I could tell that he enjoyed that and would pay back in kind. Our love-making soon became rapid and heated, unrelenting in its crescendo towards a beautiful and hot climax. We drove through it together, uncaring of who would hear our cries and screams of love, before slowly easing into a gentle and feather-like afterglow. Matthew and I held on to each other, lost within the embrace between us and the euphoria in our emotions. I was so happy to have him in my arms, causing me to pull him closer to me and cuddle against him. Matthew laughed a bit before kissing me softly and nuzzling his forehead with his. I love you, Matthew.
I love you too.
We remained there, taking in the sounds of our synchronized breathing and letting our hearts eventually beat as one. We would get through this. We would. Sleeping that night filled us with Oh! I see what you did there, Michaela! I see what you did there. Sleeping that night filled us with determination for the next day. I was hopeful, rooting that everything was going to be all right. Of course, not everything turns out the way we want. And I am going to stop there for this episode. Well, that was pretty interesting to say the least. Anyways. Alright, so with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of my videos, then click subscribe. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!